A pleasant good morning to you. Pleasant good morning to all our viewers, all our listeners. Welcome to another episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. You know the drill by now. You know the drill. Those of you who are on, I see quite a number of persons on. Share the live, call a friend, tell a friend, let them know that we're on and we're raring to go. I noted some of the regulars are already on this morning. Um, and there is their own arrangement to deal with persons who are late. And I have been trying to be lenient to tell them, say, look, don't be too harsh on persons who are late. But I know people like Lenny, who seems to be the disciplinarian in the group. He has been calling out persons for being late. I am not sure that he's on as yet. So maybe those other persons will want to take him to task this morning for not being here as yet. But share the life. Let them know that we are on this morning, speaking out, exposing incompetence, corruption and incompetence. We're on. We're ready to go. Share the live, and we are going to be ready to go in a short while. We have lots of stuff to discuss this morning to bring you up to date with. So let's give the others some time to join, and let's be ready to go. Now, one of the things that many persons, as I've said, I'm encouraged to continue with the program by the many persons who have reached out to me to tell me that they have found the program to be very informative, very educational, and they have asked me not to stop, to continue. So I will. I am motivated to continue to speak out and to expose and to highlight certain issues and to train or to pass on pertinent information. Those who want to pick up and learn will get the opportunity to pick up and learn because, as I've said, many people have called serving members of the force, former members of the force, and have said that they have found the information very, very, very useful, very, very, very informative, and therefore that encourages me to continue. Persons, during the course of this week, over the weekend, some persons have called to say that, look, people have been asking them how they can get the program. People have even asked them to send the recording to them so they can be up to date with what has been happening, what has been discussed on this program. And I want to tell you again that in order to get the notification when the program starts, you can either you can either like the page, or you can go to YouTube, find the page and subscribe to the channel. Now, once you do those things, as soon as the program goes live, you are going to get a notification, and then you're going to be able to follow. So you no longer will be reliant on a friend or someone to send the information to you when the program goes live. You're going to get that information, that notification directly. And in terms of YouTube, you can look at all the old programs that have been there. All I noted in checking that last week's program has been very, very, very popular. Perhaps the second most popular program in terms of viewership. And the numbers that we have on live and even the viewership on YouTube really would not tell the true story as to how popular the program is, because many people just copy and send it to their friend, to the relatives. So that would not be reflected in the numbers. So again, share the live, and let's get ready to go. Now, we always start by giving praise and thanks to the Almighty for allowing us to see another day and to be here in the land of the living. This is a good day. As the psalmist said, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. I think it's Psalms 118, 24. I'm bringing out my religious act for a little spell this morning. So let's rejoice and be glad that we're here among the living. Last week I told you that one of our former colleagues, ex-detective Sergeant Sego, I think his number was 8264, is no longer in the land of the living. I saw a notification he died in the States and will be buried someplace, I think is in Florida, or is buried, I'm not sure the exact date. And then over the last weekend, we received the sad news that the next former colleague, retired Assistant Commissioner Lloyd Hudson, we know him as Lenny, passed away in the United States. His funeral service in the United States will be Saturday coming, and we are receiving word that he is going to be buried in Guyana perhaps the following Saturday. So, we have our network, and once the information is sent to us, we will make sure that it is publicized, it is broadcast. Because I understand preliminary, this is not confirmed, but what I understand, that the funeral service in Guyana is likely to be on Saturday the 21st at Christchurch. So let's keep our ears out and watch out. And I know many persons would like to go there and pay, if that is the case, or wherever it is in Guyana, to pay our last respect to a fallen comrade. Those of you who remember Lenny, I remember Lenny when I joined. He was at the Quartermaster stores. And I remember him well as being one of that top Forsyth team that came from the Quartermaster store. Lenny, people like Benji, Ford was the leader of that team. I had a squad leader, Gibbs. They were a top Forsyth team. And then Lenny came from Quartermaster. When I went to Borbies as commander in 2000, Lenny was a detective officer there. I think he was at the time. I know at some stage he was there as a detective officer, having been transferred to CID. Very quiet, very unassuming, very polite character, Lenny. So Lenny has passed, and we all want to take this opportunity, I'm sure, to wish his relatives, his family, his friends, his colleagues, deepest condolences, both to Lenny's family and to Winston Sego's family. So those persons have gone. As I'm saying, that is even more reason for us who are here in the land of living to celebrate and rejoice. As I've said, this is a day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Now, moving on, I indicated in the notification that this morning we are going to continue. When I say we, I refer to myself and Mr. Conway. We are going to continue our discussion on the crisis in the Guyana Police Force and some issues, some areas. Last week we spoke about the strategic management, the one that was there from 2011 to 2015. And I think we will continue to examine aspects of that this morning. But I should also bring you up to date with the Police Service Commission matter. Last week I told you that the matter is before the full court, and the full court granted a stay on Justice Gino Prasad's order, and the lawyers were given the 10th, that is yesterday. Both parties were given the 10th to submit their written arguments. I suspect that would have been done. And following the timeline given by the full court, both parties will have 3 days until the 13th, that's Friday the 13th, to respond to whatever claims or whatever arguments would have been made. And the full court indicated that once that is done, on the 20th that is the 20th of May, that will be next Friday, they will give a ruling on the appeal against the order from the Honorable Justice Gino Prasad. So that is where that matter is still working through. And the reason why I'm keeping you up to date, because people have been asking me, especially those officers and other ranks who have been affected by this, what we call unlawful suspension of the commission. People are interested and they want to know what is going on. So I think I have a responsibility. I have a duty to keep you abreast, keep you up to date with what is going on. So that the decision of the full court is expected on that matter next week, Friday. That's Friday the 20th. Now, moving on, before I go forward, I think at this stage I'd like to bring Mr. Conway into the studio to join me, because there are some issues I want to talk about, and I'm sure that he will want to have a say in this matter. So, TC, welcome.
Thank you, Paul, and always happy to be in your company. I wish to also express my sympathy to the family and friends of Lenny. I knew him well, just like you. I knew him from the Quartermaster stores. Then I realized that we were countrymen. I remember playing cricket against him. He used to bowl a slow turn and leg spin. I
Yes,
remember,
yes, yes.
I remember pulling him into that hospital compound, and the next ball he bowled me. But he's always there, and he
That is
always
revenge.
yes, and
Yeah,
also
yes, go ahead.
yeah, that's it.
All right. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, it occurred to me, and I remember we said we are not dealing with politics. All the political issues that are on, we're not gonna. I don't want to deal with politics. I am no politician. I'm a retired police officer with what I believe is a wealth of knowledge, which I am using this forum to share. But I could not help noticing the statements in respect to the National Insurance Scheme (NIS) that is going bankrupt or it is bankrupt. Um, what I want to say, being a pensioner, being an NIS pensioner, I want to give this advice to members of the force, in particular, members of the Guyana Police Force. I remember when I retired in 2010, a very good friend of mine encouraged me to go to the NIS and to check up on my contributions. I told him, I said, well, man, I get 5 years because you retire at 55 and you don't become eligible for NIS pension until you're 60. So I had 5 years from the time I retired at 55. He said, look, let me go and check. Go and check. And I followed his advice. And I went to the NIS office in Camp Street by the prisons there to check up on my contributions. I got a shock. I nearly passed out if my heart wasn't good. Because for something like 19 years, contribution could not have been accounted for. And what they explain, and this is a message I want to send to the policemen, especially those who are approaching retirement. So even though you retire at 55 and you have until 60 to get your NIS, to begin to get your NIS pension, what I was told then, I don't know if it's still the same, that in those years, back in the years, the police sent the money to the NIS when they took it out from your salary in bulk. So NIS will receive a bulk of money from the police, and therefore the process of assigning a particular amount to an individual was very, very difficult. So it's not until you got there, when you retired, if you go to make a check, then they will check the records, and then maybe they order, in my case, there was an investigation to confirm the number of contributions, and so that took years. It took about 2-3 years. So when I became eligible at the age of 60, everything was sorted out by then. So I want to tell you not to sit back and believe that because you are far away from 60, go and check to make sure that your contributions are up to date. Nothing sinister about it, nothing illegal. It's just that the system that was being used called for some amount of reconciliation and to assign amounts to individuals so that they can say, yes, you have your number of contributions so that you can be eligible for your pension. The next thing I want to leave with you, I am no financial expert. I'm not an expert in the NIS scheme. But what I was advised then, I learned from experience, and you need to share these things, that when the time comes for the compilation of them to decide how much pension you should get, the calculations are done based on the last 3 years you would have contributed to the scheme. And therefore, people are urged that even after you retire at the age of 55, you should seek guidance as to whether you should continue to contribute to the scheme if you're unemployed, and what amount you should continue to contribute, so that when the time comes for you to get your pension, at least you can get something that is sizable, something that that you can be relatively satisfied with. So I want to share that with our viewers. Don't wait, go and check just to make sure that your contributions are up to date. Policemen, I know a lot of people are approaching that retirement age, and like me, you might feel that, well, you got until 60. No, don't wait. Go and check. I implore you to go and check. CC, what was your experience with that?
Similar to you. I started 6 months before I reached the age of to collect my pension. And there's a woman there right in Camp Street who was pushing me and turning around. So I got a problem at finance office. When I go there, I don't get assistance. I say, when you're ready, let me know. I'm going to take you there and side out. And when I turned 60, I went to her and I said, look, I was begging. I'm 60 now, I'm demanding. She said, sorry, we could go today. And we went the same day. And like you two, the records weren't straight. They knocked me up some year, bring me on the work, knocked me up about 4 times, and then afterward, it was started out. But saying, check before your appointed date.
Correct, correct. I see Gordon. Gordon is saying that it happened to him. Gordon, my information is that almost every single policeman who retired and reached the age to get pension, it has happened to because of the system that was being used at the time. As I've said, it's nothing sinister. It's not that they thief your money or anything like that. It's just that the system that was used sent the money to the NIS in bulk, and therefore they weren't able to indicate against who. And not until the investigation is done, then they can say, well, yes, Gordon made so many contributions and therefore he's entitled, or CC or Paul made these contributions and they're entitled. So we want to use our experience in that regard to tell persons to not to sit back and wait. I was fortunate that I got advice from my friend, so that as soon as the time came, I think you make an application like 6 months before, and as soon as I made my application, when I reached 60, I started to get my NIS benefits almost immediately. So please, I see some of the comments. My colleagues are saying they had the same experience. It looked like the experience was there for all retired policemen, and we don't want those who are now approaching retirement and to get to the NIS pension to suffer the same fate. So please. So moving on. One of the things, CC and I were we had some experience over the past months and weeks. We have been, people believe we're bashing the police. We're not bashing the police. We're bringing to the fore issues, and we are acutely aware that some of these issues are being taken up by the powers that be. I have said, and both of us have said, that in the past we would have had audience, we would have had the opportunity to interact directly with the powers that be, so that these things could have been brought to their attention. We no longer have that arrangement, so therefore we are using this medium to bring it to their attention. And from some of the things that they've said, from the things they've done, I suspect they listen, and they hope they have the good sense to take some things, take criticism in your stride, and what is going to implement. Now, I say that to say, because people keep bashing the police and they bashing the police with justification in many cases. I recall some weeks ago, I read something in one of the social media comments, people bashing all departments of the force. Again, I said perhaps a justification. But then there is one shining department that I think it is important for me to identify. And I refer to the Central Immigration and Passport Office. I have had cause to go to that office in recent times. And the service that was offered there compares to any service in Guyana and further afield. I was pleasantly surprised. I went there with an overseas relative who came in specifically to get a passport. And of course, you read a lot of crap, and she was a bit worried as to whether she would have gotten it in time. And I can tell you, she left feeling very, very impressed, because they have an arrangement now, which came, and I gotta say it, this arrangement came into effect when Mr. Winston Felix was in charge. He was a minister with that responsibility, citizenship, where you can have an expedited passport. That is to say, you can go in today, pay an additional sum, I think it's $20,000 additional, and you can get your passport within 24 hours. That service is there. So when people talk about departments in the force, and again, I say a lot of things happen, and perhaps people criticize with justification. But when areas are going well, like the Central Immigration Passport Office, we need to come and we need to give them the thanks and the praise that they deserve. So I'm using this opportunity to big up and to shout out to the Central Immigration and Passport Office. Continue to do yourselves, continue to do the organization, continue to do the duty, the country proud. I am proud of you, and I'm sure many Guyanese who have had the opportunity to interact with you in recent times are also proud of you. Cece, what is your take on that?
Like we always on the same track, Paul. I went there 2 weeks ago. My cousin and his wife, they are United States citizens, but they are Guyanese to the bone. And they will not give up their Guyanese citizenship. So they went to renew their passport. I stayed in the background, and I was really impressed with the way they handled them and others there. They were they had a line, but it moved smoothly. And as I stood there, a constable came to me and he asked me, "Sir, are you getting through?" I see you standing in the corner. I said, "Yes, I'm getting through." He went away. Shortly after, a female immigration officer came to me. "Sir, are you getting through?" I said, "Yes, I'm waiting on somebody." I said, "Do you know me?" She said, "No, I don't know you." I introduced myself. And she said, "Oh, you're Mrs. Slow Partner. Is it true you just
Partner in crime. She left out partner in crime.
Yeah. To say I really enjoying that program. It's very informative. I'm learning so much, but I cannot look at it during working hours. But I have it recorded, and I listen to it. And please tell Mrs. Slow he mustn't stop. He must continue. That he's doing a good job. Well, she didn't give me any praise, so you take the praise. Take
All
the
right.
glory.
Thanks, CC. Yeah, so I think we need to, other people are saying, so in the comments, one man said the service at the passport office is exceptional, on par with any similar agency in the world. I support that sentiment fully. The
But
passport office, I mean, let's be fair. The physical arrangement might not be the best. People have to wait and all of that. The physical arrangement, but in terms of the service itself, in terms of the service is on par with any I have experienced. And this is not the only passport office I have been to. It is on par with any that I have experienced. So again, shout out to the Central Immigration and Passport Office. The I think the DCIO there is Superintendent Stevens. And having said that, he went there, I think, sometime in 2020. And from all indication, from what we have seen, he has been doing an excellent job. Even though he is one of the persons that the government decide they're not going to recognize his promotion. He was promoted by the Police Service Commission, but he's one of those 132 that they say that they are not recognizing. Notwithstanding that, Mr. Stevens, DCIO, I am going to encourage you to continue to be professional and to do your job. You're going to be rewarded in time, I am sure. So continue. Don't let that daunt your spirit. Continue to do your work. Continue to motivate the ranks below you to continue to deliver this exceptional service at that department. Now, moving
Paul,
on.
Paul,
Yes.
just before you go, there's a little negative, not at that passport and immigration office in Camp Street, but at Ogle. I don't think Stephen might be aware. I haven't spoken to him for a long time. That ranks who are stationed there, they have to get their own transportation to get to Ogle. Normally, they used to get a police bus that will carry the ranks who go into Timiri and Ogle uh, to their work site. And some ranks got to pay a whole lot of money. They take a minibus, drop out at Ogle by the railway embankment, and they got to pay about $800 for car to get into Ogle. And the powers that be, the people in charge of operations, apparently like they can't find a vehicle to to drop those persons as they would normally do to ogle those persons who work in day shift and night shift. And night shift is very dangerous. I understand sometimes a minibus drop them off at Ogle in the night, 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night, and difficulty getting to the airport. So I want to appeal to them to please just put the little system in place so that the ranks working at Ogle airstrip immigration ranks can be given the normal transportation to get to and from their work site.
Well, that should be because I know when I was there in the system, ranks going to Timeri. There was a transportation provided to take them up and to bring them back down. And I can't see why something similar can be done for Ogle, which is just what? Ogle is just about 6 miles away. So I think, well, let me hope they're listening, and they should seek to address that. You should not have ranks, especially in the night. And the immigration officers, many of them are females, having to undergo that. Apart from the cost associated with it, you have to look at security and safety. So please, whoever it is, either the Deputy Chief Immigration Officer, I think, should make representation, or the ranks themselves should bring it to the attention. And they might say they don't know. So please make sure, and things like this, the Police Association should get involved in. So yes, that's a little negative, but not on the part of the ranks, but on the part of the system. Now, moving on, I noted over the past week, the man who sits in the office of the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of Home Affairs have been making, I think they had some meeting with the private security services, and they were talking about the use of siren. I think the Commissioner is reported to have reminded the private security services that they are not allowed to use sirens and other warning devices. I noted on the sidelines of the Gymkhana on Sunday, the commissioner, or the man who sits in the office, is reported to have said that they are going to be looking at the training, the firearms training for members of the private security service. Now, in terms of the warning devices, yes, the law is clear that they should not be using. I want to also remind them, as we have done in the past, that you have civilians who are now affixing flashing light and siren to their vehicles. That needs to be addressed as well. What should also be addressed is police vehicles. Even though they are authorized by law to have warning devices, sirens and flashing light, you got to get an SOP as to when these things should be used. Because on many occasions, you see, it looks now, once a police vehicle is out, the light should be flashing light should be. That should not be. That should not be. Same thing with the siren. People racing coming through, police vehicles racing coming through. I am sure they're not going to any emergency, but they just feel the need for the traffic to move out and to give them passage to go. So those things need to be addressed. In terms of the training, CC user training, man, what are your views on this increased training for the private security personnel? Are we talking here based on what they have said? We're talking about training in the use of firearms.
It was normally a 3 days training program, and I heard the man who sits at the top saying that it has been increased to 2 weeks. 1 week to do with theory and another week to do with practical. That is alarming. And you got to be training people for a role. Well, all those security use those heavy vehicles, heavy machinery, as the case may be. I don't know what will be the course content in terms of the practical training. Would they be doing like firing at Timeri rifle ranges? I really don't know. Maybe unless I see what the course content is and the objectives are, I might be able to comment further. But 1 week, what are you doing? And then you got to be careful when you train certain among the persons, and then they normally leave the job. They're out on the streets, a civilian, highly trained persons on the street. Plus, we have members of the police force and the joint service who are highly trained also in use of firearm there. Plus, we put in an additional amount of persons there on the street. It's shocking. For us, more thought, more brain work need to go into it. Because right now, as I said over and over again, they're using one side of the brain. They're not using whole brain thinking. So some whole brain thinking must go into it in terms of this 2 weeks training that they intend to do for private security persons.
Well, the old story is, as you know, I am, or used to be, still is, a firearm instructor. And I didn't hear about the 2 weeks because some of the things I don't really listen to, but I would find it extremely difficult to be able to put together a proper program in the use of firearm by private security personnel that can span um, 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a long time for this type of training. And one of the things that occurred to me over not only now since I was in the system is the trainers themselves. Whether these people are go through a organized program to qualify them as instructors. You know, recently the force partnered with the university and they had this thing about train the trainers. And as I indicated before, UJ participation in training trainers is going to deal with the theoretical aspect, how to design program, how to assess training needs, and that type of thing. But in terms of the competency of the instructors themselves, I don't know what arrangements they are to make sure that a person who stands before a class to deliver a lecture on a particular subject, including the use of firearm, that they have the requisite information. I know from my experience, I never forget when I was Commander B, Commander Borbies, and questioning ranks. I then realized that there was a deficiency in knowledge, and I undertook at that time to share I as a commander used to conduct classes to bring persons up to speed. And when I moved to operations, one day I went down there and had a random check with the instructors, questioned them on some what I considered basic concepts, and I was astonished when I realized that some of these basic things they did not do. So we need to make sure that the people who are going to be doing the training, they have the requisite knowledge. We need to ensure, because what you're going to be doing, you're standing there because they can only impart what they know. And if they don't know, it means basically they're not imparting anything much.
Paul, you touched the ball there. I can remember when I was a force training officer, the Tactical Services Unit conducted a skill times training program, and they invited me to give the feature address. And I started and then I broke. I pushed my hand in my pocket. I took out my wallet and I had some money. I wasn't impecunious then. And I threw it on the table. And I say, if anybody could repeat for me, post order 4 of 74, when you may fire, and that relates to the use of firearm, take this money there. And they couldn't. The instructors themselves could not have been able. And if you're going to do firearm training, that must be embedded in them when you may fire.
For the people viewing, for the younger policemen, this force order 4 of 74 republished on several occasions. When you may fire, when you are legally allowed to shoot. Yep. And I'm saying that anyone who carries a firearm ought to know that to the T. When you are allowed, I remember as a young sergeant, the late great J.O.F. Ains, I was the firearm instructor then. He was given a firearm, a revolver, and I was the person who was sent to the same appeal court building there to deliver this firearm to him and to make sure that I conducted what we call rudimentary instructions, basic training with him. And I am there, young sergeant of the police, the J.F. Ains, the chancellor, I think he was at the time, sitting there, and I am lecturing to him on the use of firearm. And when I was finished, when I lectured to him Force Orders 4 of 74, and I explained in detail all the rules, he asked me, I never forget that, if those instructions were given to policemen. I told him, I said, yes, sir, these instructions. And then he said to me that from now on, when any incident or when there's an incident involving a police shooting, he is going to view it differently, because he said then that those rules were comprehensive, and they're still comprehensive today. And not only for the members of the private security, but also members of the force and persons licensed firearm holders as well. When you are legally allowed to fire, that is the lecture I did over and over the years. I mean, you wake me up out of my sleep. Even now, I can stand and I can deliver that and I can recite. I can rattle off the rules as to when you may fire. And when the standing order review team looked at the standing order, that is something we looked at. And I think there was no need to make any serious amendment to it because it's still valid up to today, right? It is still valid. Now, the next issue that I want to touch on is we noted over the past week. I keep imploring people about the use of road, fatalities on the road. And for the past week, there have been so many fatal accidents around the country. So many fatal accidents. And again, I recall the one across the river. It was Windsor Forest, I think it was. That one was so disturbing. Again, speeding. The man ran off the road because he lost control. He died. And then they discovered he had two small children in the vehicle with him. Luckily, they did not suffer any serious injury. But this is a driver who has two children in the vehicle. And he's speeding to such an extent that he lost control, ran off the road, killed himself. And then more recently, there was this one on the quarantine where a man returning from masjid, prayers early in the morning, a Muslim brother, the report suggests that some drunk driver went into the lane where he was. There was an head-on collision, and both a motorcyclist and the motorcyclist died. And the issue about bail came up again because when this morning I was looking at it, the person I think passed through court yesterday or sometime recently, and was charged for the drunk driving, and I'm not sure they're charged for the causing death, but was put on $520,000 bail. And this morning I read a post from someone who is very upset over the fact that the person was put on bail in the sum of $520,000. And here again, last week we commented on a fatal accident which occurred in Kitty, where the person was charged and put on $200,000 bail. A week later, a person is charged, similar circumstances, drunk driving, fatal accident. The person is put on $520,000 bill. So there's no consistency really, and people make all type of comments. People comment about the system of bail. They make comments about the magistrate. They make comments about the judges. But something needs to be done, not only about the bail, but the way people are driving on the road. And it's time the traffic department tell us about some proper plan to address these issues. Not the thing about moving vendors and beggars from the street corner. Not what they told us last week about having campaigns to deal with drunk driving. I have said before, and let me remind viewers that I was a traffic chief in this country on two separate occasions. And therefore, I think I have some knowledge, some institutional knowledge, and I think I am qualified to speak on the issue. Based on all that is being said, all that is happening, I think it is time that a comprehensive review be made of the entire system. The theoretical, the practical system. A comprehensive review should be done so that we can address the problem and not the symptoms. We can address the problem because there's no doubt that there are lots of corruption in the system. We had a case some years ago where a sergeant in the traffic department charged for having your own system with how many books and all this type of thing. Over the years, you have had issues like that. So the time has come for that to be done. I need to say that the police should not be responsible, should no longer be responsible for the conduct of theoretical law and driver program and the practical program. They should also no longer be responsible for things like examination of vehicles and so on. Those things should evolve to the competent ministry, like happens in many, many countries around. Most places they put so we need to address this problem holistically. CC, what are your views?
Paul, I don't know if you can recall, I think about a month ago or thereabout, we had two letters from our good friend Rowan Singh talk about corruption, particularly in the law and driver package.
Yes.
And I also wrote a letter to the editor where I did my own assessment, talking to persons who are conducting driving courses, practical driving school. And I discovered that over 90% of those persons who went to the driving school, who went to persons, there are some ex traffic men who were teaching them to drive, who went to those persons to learn to drive, already have their driver's license. Already have their driver's license and they gone to those schools. So it's telling you something. And that I agree that maybe give some other body, some other department or not outside the police force to deal with those kind of things. Free up the police and let the police concentrate on their role that is set out in the police is enact in terms of dealing with crime and disorder and those kind of things. But it's frightening how people get their driver's license. And that is a big question. How this man get his driver's license? But
Yeah, and then
I see now they're doing um, the, the, the theory. They're doing it.
online, yes, I see that virtually.
That is a good move. But you pass the theory. But what happened with the practical? The
Yeah.
proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yeah, but the post that I reported this morning, the person was talking about suspension of driver's license, and so I don't know when last a driver's license has been suspended, but I just want to say it's a long process. Yeah? You can't just suspend the license like that. It has to go through a long process, and I think the authority to do so is the Minister of Home Affairs.
Yes.
It goes to the DPP through the traffic chief, and then the DPP recommends. And this after the person is charged, the DPP recommends, and then I used to send it on to the Minister of Home Affairs, who is the competent authority, and then they would send it and do the suspension. But you made an interesting note about these driving schools. Again, I say this thing need to have a comprehensive overview, because what qualifies a person to become a driving instructor? What course of training he would have gone through? What type of certification he would have? And that is part of the lawlessness in the system. So as it is now, I can decide that, look, I am going to open a driving school, and that's it. Given my background as a former police officer, the former traffic chief, I can use that. But nobody examines me to know that if I have the requisite knowledge to be competent, to be a competent driving instructor. That is part of the problem. So I suspect a lot of people just teaching the wrong things because they don't know the right thing. So you got into this position where the drivers or the people who acquire a driver's license don't know the correct rules on the road. That is a problem. So that is why I'm calling for a comprehensive overview of the entire system, including who conducts the examinations, both theory and practical, what process there is for the training, driving schools and all of that. How are they certified? The school itself, the instructors in the school, those things need to be addressed if we're going to seek to get on top of this lawlessness that is going on the roads, causing so much grief and suffering with accidents, fatal and other accidents. CC, you see how the time goes. Last week we talked about this strategic plan, and we looked at the plan 2011-2015. I understand the man who sits in the office of the commissioner has been talking about some other plan. And we did say that we are not aware of that plan, given that we are outsiders, so we might not be fully abreast and informed of what is going on. But you said that people in the system too were not aware of the plan. You know, over the past week, I looked at the 2004, 2011, 2015, and you referred to the 25 key risks that were identified in that plan. I know when looking at it, I looked at the ninth risk that was identified in the 2011-2015 plan. And, you know, only last week we were talking about it. Because the ninth risk says there will be insufficient succession planning to ensure that the skilled resources are in place to deliver this plan. 2011, 2015, and only last week we were talking about succession planning, and we were making the point that there seems not to be any proper succession planning in the force. Let me hear you there, CC.
There's no succession planning in the force. Succession planning has to be a structured document. And if we look at presently the man who's holding the position of the top cop there, I have nothing personal against him. I'm talking about the system. Because the president had maybe a difficult task. Does he want a tactical commissioner or a strategic commissioner? A long-term commissioner or a short-term commissioner? Now, this guy who is at the top there, July, he's going to be 55. Next year, July, I'm talking about. Is that strategic? And not only that, he's talking about strategic plan 2022 to 2026. By then, he'll be gone. And remember,
oh, you know that, man. Oh, CC, let me stick a pin. The man might, let me say this.
It might be strategically extended.
No, look, let's be realistic. If you look back, we can learn from history. If we look back, we're going to see in 1992, recall that well, the government changed in 1992. Larry Lewis was the commissioner. When the time came for Larry Lewis to retire, Larry Lewis was extended for, I think, 3 years in the first instance, another 2 years. So Larry Lewis was extended for 5 years. So he served until he was 60. And as I mentioned before, it was a politician who had to bring it to their attention. There was no provision in law for him to be extended beyond 60 because they were trying to do that. After Mr. Larry Lewis, the next commissioner was Mr. Floyd McDonald. He too was extended beyond about 55. As a matter of fact, when he became commissioner, he was beyond 55. Mr. McDonald handed over to Mr. Felix. He was not extended. Mr. Green took over from Mr. Felix. Green was extended until he ran into hot water and had to be let go. Green handed over to Bromwell. Bromwell had an extension. And after that, and that is with that PPP government. So the only person who was not extended was Mr. Winston Felix. And then more recently, you had Mr. Silal Prasad and Mr. Leslie James. They were not extended. So it would seem that the trend is under this administration is to extend. So when you hear the gentleman talks about strategic plan from 2022 to 2026, he might very well, he expects to be there then. He expects to be there long beyond his retirement age. And let me say this. Let me say this. Like you, it is not about an individual. It's about a system which prepares persons. When we talk about succession, we're talking about preparing persons for office. We talk about preparing. And it cannot be a good thing when you just wait until a person about to retire or a person retires and say, all right, hold on. Because the view is that once the person is approaching retirement age and has expectations or a promise that he's going to be extended, then he don't want to rock the boat. Whatever you tell him to do, he is going to do, because all he is concerned, he becomes even more self-serving, and all he is concerned with is to make sure that he gets his extension. So it cannot be good. You don't want to, in reflecting, I don't know if you recall this, but some years ago, I think it might have been in the 80s, Mr. Skip Roberts was given the task of doing this, put out paper on succession planning. It was, if you remember, well, Walter Gravesand, do you remember the story, WG?
Yes, Skip didn't do a good job.
Well, the whole story is, WG, Walter had his family abroad. Walter is dead now. He had his family abroad, and I think some comments was made in the plan that he should not be considered for any senior position because he has migratory tendencies.
Yeah.
He had, Walter Daviji took umbrage to that and make a big set of noise when we were at the mess. He used to really cuss out over that thing. But at least some attempt was made then to streamline certain areas, TSU, finance. But since then, I don't think anything has been done. And here it is, the strategic plan, the 9 risks identified relates to succession planning. And as we've said, we know that no succession planning is being done. What other area you want us to, in the few more minutes that we have on this key risk that the risks that were identified that strikes you?
All right, there are so many areas, Paul, we might get. Remember,
We gotta come again. We might gotta come
remember,
again on this, yeah.
yeah. Remember years ago, Larry Lewis brought a strategic a consultant in strategic management, Dr. Aubrey Armstrong, to
Yep,
us
yep.
to teach our senior people the basic of strategic management. Here's it in the force that those persons that we have there, members of the executive leadership team, the commanders, the officers, the subdivision officers don't know about this plan. This plan, this 2022, 2026, bring it out. Let's get it. But let me get back to Captain Simmons' 2011, 2015 plan. Let's look at 24. I want to read it. An increase in the economy of Guyana may increase the demands on the GPF, which cannot be managed with existing resources. Perhaps they saw by then, maybe they were futuristic that ExxonMobil would have found a whole set of oil. I think by 2025, we're going to produce about 1 million barrels a day. How are we going to deal with this massive, this gigantic increase in our economy? Where the human resource is going to come from? I hear they're planning to import, maybe you're going to import persons from the West Indies to become members of the Ghana Police Force. That they need to look at those things. Those things are serious things. Don't jump and say, I get a strategic plan. It calls for strategic thinking. It calls for whole brain thinking. And with the rise of the economy, the dramatic and gigantic increase in the economy, how are we going to manage strategically? Or are we going to work hit and miss situation? I'm sorry for the police force.
Well, and by extension, if you decide for the police force, you have to decide for us as Guyanese because the force is critical. We're talking about this oil economy. We're talking about nation building, and you have to have a competent and professional police force for these things to happen to take place. I look at the one of the risks, number 4, and number 4 says the Ministry of Home Affairs does not have a strategic plan which gives overall direction to the Guyana Police Force strategic plan. So this Captain Simmons strategic plan 2011-2015 was saying that in order for the police to put together a strategic plan, the Ministry of Home Affairs must have a strategic plan which gives direction to the Guyana Police Force. And they did say, the last part of that very statement says, however, the Ministry of Home Affairs is in the process of developing a strategic plan. That was in 2011-2015. They were in the process. Wonder what happened to that one too. Wonder what happened to the Ministry of Home Affairs strategic plan.
Maybe still in process, or they might say, like the police, they have one. I won't be surprised. But the thing is that if you have the plan, you must have competent persons to push this thing both internally and externally. I remember Clement Rory, as bad as he was, he used to try. We used to get monthly meetings dealing with the strategic plan.
Yes, I was part of that meeting. Yes.
You were part of it. I remember one time, even Assistant Commissioner David Ramroy complained about the monthly checks to Home Affairs and the political interference that they had the thing going. And even when Silal Pusat turned commissioner, Silal abandoned that plan and disbanded the strategic management unit. Now they don't have a strategic management unit. Let me repeat, the police force does not have a strategic management unit. They have a strategic planning meeting. The management has dropped off. And I don't want you to comment on this.
Understand.
And I know you're commenting because, and it's headed by a very inexperienced person, an inexperienced assistant superintendent of police. At one time, we had an assistant commissioner in charge. Now we have one thing. And they have some person there who they say they are policy analysts. Nobody there is deep in strategic management or strategic thinking. They call them analysts. You expect people there, at least somebody with a doctorate in strategic management, or if you want to break down a bit, a master's. They don't have this person there. Balram Prasad used to say, if you pay peanuts, you don't get monkey business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In response to one of the one of the questions, one of the viewers asking if non-Guyanese are recruited into the Guyana police force. Not in recent times, but if you go study the history of the force, of course, you are a colonial force, and therefore you would have had expatriate officers being recruited. And I recall even when I was a young constable, they had people from, I remember we had Barbadian, a few
Yeah, yeah,
Barbadians.
we had a couple of Bajans.
Yeah, we had a few Barbadians. I think they were Guyanese. They might have had Barbadians ancestry. But
But the
yeah,
Mad
so
Guyanese.
we had persons from the Caribbean who were recruited in the force. And as I've said, all the forces in the Caribbean would have had expatriate um, officers, colonial officers. So, but I don't think in recent times um, we have been recruiting outsiders. I know, for example, places like St. Kitts, I think Antigua at some stage, they would actually advertise for persons in the Caribbean. We had a very good instructor who used to work with me, Lionel Moore. He took up the offer and he went to St. Kitts. He retired some years ago with the rank of superintendent. So those islands did advertise and recruit um, other people from the other territories within the Caribbean, but we have never had such a program. So let's see how it will happen. I made the point some time ago in dealing when I addressed the crisis at the top management. I referenced the Jamaican situation. I referenced the Trinidadian situations where they actually brought in people from outside in very, very senior positions. In Trinidad, they had the commissioner. In Jamaica, they had the deputy commissioner Shields. Trinidad, they had Mr. Gibbs. And therefore, I had said then that the time has come for us to think outside of the box. I am not saying, I maintain that we have competent people in the system who, if properly trained and guided, can fill those vacancies, can fill those, they are competent enough. The problem is, in my view, is that those persons are not favored. And again, from my experience, you're not favored when the politicians believe that you're not going to you're not going to dance to their music. If they believe that you're professional and you are independent, then you are not favored. So I suspect that because of that, because of the need for them to have control, and again, we make the point, no one can deny the level of political interference in the force at this time. You indicated it some time ago. People have said it. There have always been political interference in the Guyana police force. And I agree with that. There have always been. But the level or the extent of interference in recent times is what is of serious concern. And more than that, you have people now who are just I would make bold to say, because they lack knowledge, they are unprofessional. They just do whatever they are told to do. So nobody has the competence, nobody has the professionalism to question some of these things. They don't even ask a question. So again, it's a case where the people say jump. They ask how high they must jump. And if people say lock up this man, you go and you arrest and you lock up the man. And the actions cannot stand scrutiny. I am saying that if we're talking about this strategic plan, and if you want to develop this police force, those things have to be addressed. But I'm not going to hold my breath. I am not going to hold my breath. CC, are you going to hold yours?
I I really don't know, Paul, because so many things happening, you know, and more so you mentioned politically, where people are operating emotionally and politically. And if I may deviate a bit, it boils back to career development. We talk about it, and there's very little job rotation, job enlightenment, job enrichment, job satisfaction. All those things ties up with succession planning. And if you don't look at those things, Paul, I don't know what's going to happen in the police force. I'm just seeing a doom in the police force, but there are people there. There are people there. Maybe another program we can talk about. Some people there who are capable, but they have to be given the requisite training, both local and overseas, the necessary exposure. And let me clear up by saying what's going on in the police force, and I have no apologies to say this. What's going on is this: it's police, it's politics, it's professionalism and corruption. Let me repeat: police, politics, professionalism, and corruption.
Yeah, and one of the things too, we talk about succession, you identify some of the areas. One of the things I would like to remind us that, again, you look at it, even persons going on annualized vacation leave is an opportunity to train as part of the succession process. You have situations now in the force where the last man who sat there as commissioner proceeded on leave. I think it was the 27th of April. And he actually retires on the 1st of January 2023. And you have had cases. I saw a case where an officer proceeded on 400 and something days leave prior to retirement. You have so many persons are not going, they're not being made to proceed and leave because, one, they feel threatened, they don't want to go. People make the argument that one of the reasons why they don't want to go to is that the thing's sweet. And they believe that if they leave, some of the sweetness will go to someone else. So they don't want to go and leave. But I remind us that the public service rules stipulate when a person should go and leave and how many days that person should go on. And going and leave is an opportunity for that person to go and to relax. And in the context of this conversation, it's an opportunity for someone to sit in that office and get exposure, part of the succession. So when the time comes for him or her to take over, they've been there before. They understand that with some of the training. So yes, succession is very, very important. Someone commented there that St. Vincent had a Guyanese commissioner, not only St. Vincent, but St. Kitts Nevis had the late Mr. Derek Thompson as commissioner. I think Grenada had Reggie King as commissioner. So yeah, we have had Guyanese senior police officers. In the case of Mr. King, I think he was seconded, so he was still a member of the force when he went there. In the case of Mr. Thompson, when he retired, he applied and he got the job as a commissioner in St. Kitts and Nevis. So yes, Guyanese have gone out to those places and they have been commissioners. Now, as I've said, the whole issue about this strategic plan, there are 25 risks. I think we dealt with about 3 of them this morning. I think we have to address some other crucial risks that were identified in this plan so that we can find out what is going on. We can bring it to their attention. And no doubt, the fact that they are listening, perhaps for the wrong reason, they are listening for the wrong reason to catch us saying something wrong, to bring lawsuits. But they ought to recognize that some of these things can, or all of those things should be implemented if you're going to do this new strategic plan. I can see some of the or most of those risks, they still exist. And perhaps they have a template there. How they will go forward. CC, your closing remarks.
It might not be a template, it might be a copy. And I don't want to use the
Well,
word.
even that,
I won't want to
because
use
you
the
see, the
word.
document is theirs,
I
The
want to
document
use
is
the word.
theirs because once Capital Simmons, they would have been contracted and they did
Yeah.
this plan. Um, I remember my days in research and so on. You know that what happens is that they can use the plan. All they have to do is to give credit. All they
Yeah.
have to say is that this plan was originally prepared by Capital Simmons, and then there's not plagiarism.
I agree with you. You see, I don't like people bluffing. Be straightforward. Because bluffing has a two-sided thing. It's either you succeed gloriously or you fail miserably. And you know what is happening now.
Yeah. But I say, they say if you don't get the facts, you just baffle them with BS. So people come
Yeah.
and they say and they say oh, we have this plan and oh, we have that. We are gonna do training 2 weeks with security. Oh, and we're gonna have a traffic campaign to deal with drunken driving. They make these fanciful statements, and I have a lot of friends in the media, journalists and so on. I ain't talking about those who pose as journalists. I'm talking about real journalists. And I would sometimes abuse them out, and say, y'all lazy, y'all don't follow up these issues. These statements are made. Many people carry it there and then, and there's no follow-up to find out what has happened. For example, the thing about vendors and beggars at street corner, nobody had follow up. How many people have you removed? What has happened since a whole month or so? This statement has been, nobody follows up. So they get away with all of these fanciful statements because people are intellectually lazy. So we need, and that is one of the reasons I say that I am going to use this program to make sure that issues are not given this limited shelf life. In this society, something comes up and everybody comment on it, and then after a day or two, everybody forget. I have said that this program will be used to keep highlighting issues such as a policeman who was found sleeping. What has happened to that matter? People need to know. The young immigration officer who they denied the course on the cadet course, these things will be kept in the public light so that I'm not going to allow them to get away with all of these platitudes and duck and for cover. So, CC, thank you again for being with me this morning. As you would say, let me
Before
preempt.
before
Yeah.
before you, Paul, let me just say, and origin again, let them bring forward their strategic plan 2022, 2026, and let's compare and contrast it with Capital Simmons 2011, 2016.
Well, thank you very much. And let me preempt you to say that it's always a pleasure to be here with you, co-accused. Um, um, you bring a different perspective to this program. And from the comments, from the interactions that I have seen, people are enjoying, people are being educated, people are being informed. And as we said, somebody indicated this 1 hour too short. But the old story is that we will come again. We will come again because there are so many other issues on this um, Capital Simmons 2011-2015 strategic plan, the risks that were identified, the strategic goals that were identified. We need to continue to discuss it for the benefit of the young policemen, for the benefit of the listening public, for the benefit of the viewing public. So once again, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Now, folks, thank you for attention. I would normally close by reminding us about COVID. And during the past couple of weeks, I have been saying how grateful, how pleased we were that the numbers were rapidly declining. There seems to be a new trend in that because only yesterday, I think it was, the Minister of Health has issued a warning that certain things need to be re-implemented because the numbers have started to go up again. So we have to be extremely, extremely careful. COVID is still with us. Some people operate as if COVID is a thing of the past. When we saw what happened Easter Monday, we saw all those big fat old people lying, we saw Dexter Dapp on the stadium. The concern is always there that once you have those activities that attract that large number of persons, lending out of activity as well, the numbers are going to go up. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are going up. What we need to do is to make sure, just make sure that we continue to abide by the rules, wash our hands, social distance, wear your mask, and stay in if you have to. Don't. COVID is still with us. We have all the experience now of how to handle this pandemic. There's vaccine. You have all of those issues, and they work. We know now, the science show that they work, so that we should now make sure that we continue to follow those guidelines and be safe. So again, stay safe, and God's willing, next Wednesday, we're going to be here again. I am going to be here again, and I invite you to join me next Wednesday at 11 a.m. as I host another program of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. Good afternoon, and bye for now.